again, the compliance between state and federal law. It's not just family medical leave. There's a lot of different things going on that the federal law, that there's state law and a federal law, and we like to make sure that they're as similar as possible, so the regulations that businesses comply with are easier. Venture capital was a huge issue last session, and WMC kind of stayed out of the venture capital discussion, but I have not myself been working with Jason Collada, who's our tax and transportation policy lobbyist, my colleague. He's been working on this, and we will be getting involved in a venture capital effort. We would like to encourage co-investment with private funds, managed by private investment professionals, that the state retains equity interest, and that there's an evergreen fund. Now, if you ask me what that means, I have no idea. I just want you to know what WMC is up to as it relates to venture capital, and if you have questions, I'm happy to refer you to the right people on our team. Improve quality and affordability of healthcare. This is my area. Healthcare in Wisconsin, I think, is on hold until we know what's going on with federal reform. We won't know what's going on with federal reform until the election, which is coming up quickly. But even after the election, I would probably guess that it's not going to be a full repeal of the federal healthcare law. I'm guessing some of the people that are already complying with the law would prefer that we not do a full repeal because they've already gone too far. The question is what will be repealed, what won't be. I know a lot of people are talking about the payment advisory board for seniors. WMC hasn't really been getting involved in that. What we're paying attention to is the Wisconsin exchange versus the federal exchange. What does that mean for employers? I think right now employers are looking at whether or not they're going to offer health insurance or not, whether or not they're going to pay the fine if they don't offer, and they want to know what that healthcare exchange is going to look like. So if they do decide not to offer healthcare, what their employees are going to be under. WMC advocates for a state healthcare exchange. We think that if it's closer to Wisconsin, that will be better for Wisconsin employers. We're also there to help employers try to comply with the law. It's very complicated. We had a seminar in Milwaukee in September. We had over 180 people there. We had a morning session that talked about what businesses need to do to comply in 2012. And then we had an afternoon session with what businesses need to do to comply with the mandate. And politics aside, pre-existing condition coverage aside, all of the things that make healthcare access important, complying with this law is difficult. It's complicated. So if you have questions on it, please feel free to call. But WMC will continue to try to do things for employers to make it easy to offer employer-sponsored insurance. I think it's in everybody's best interest that employer-sponsored insurance continues. The sooner more people wind up in the health exchange, I think the sooner we'll get to an expensive single-payer system. We have to control costs first. Did I miss one? Oh, the viable permitting process for the mining industry. How could I miss the mine? How could WMC not talk about the mine? We will, again, be encouraging mining legislation, and it will be iron, the difference between iron and copper, and the way that it's done. We'll keep this ferrous mining, and we're hoping that we have a bipartisan bill early on. And that we can get that going. It's 3,000 jobs in northern Wisconsin, and I would argue that it would be more. Preparing the workforce. This is another one feel free to interact at any time. You know, Jim Morgan, who's the head of our foundation, he went out and visited 55 different chambers across the state and talked to them about what they're facing and the workforce shortage and the skills gap. We're high on everybody's list. So what are we going to do about that? We'd like to work on developing data so students have information about what kind of opportunities are available to them when they graduate. We want to make sure that people have current labor data so they know what opportunities are available. We want to enhance workforce training resources. What does that mean? I'm on the Apprenticeship Advisory Council for Wisconsin, and at my last meeting they handed me a 4-page folder, and it was a list across the entire thing of how many different workforce training dollars are used and under what programs. And it was 4 pages across. That's complicated, and it's hard for people to figure out how to best utilize those training dollars. We'd like to better align all of those under maybe 1 or 2 umbrellas. So we're putting our training dollars to the best work. And then we would like to use that data to the data that we find to put those workforce training dollars to best use. When we talk about the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and DWD and WHEDA, the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Association, they have sometimes, they can do a better job of putting the resources that they have together to either encourage more development of a business in the state or to bring new things in. And we're encouraging that we do a better collaboration of those dollars so we can bring anybody, whether they're here or outside the state, better incentives to grow. There's a lot of discussion right now about the goals of UW and Tech College and what they're doing and the kids that they're putting out and what kind of skills that they have. We would like Tech Colleges and UW to focus resources on training for the workplace, whether or not it's using the data, the currently aware data, to identify areas of greatest need, enhancing occupational information available to students, and then using those use funding incentives to drive them to change. We are going to encourage that those schools do things like that. And then enhance educational achievement. We hear a lot about STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. We want our school districts to get more engaged in that type of educating our children for the jobs of the future. We also would like to enhance dual enrollment opportunities, so the kids who do decide that they would like to go into the skilled workforce, that they can go either into a place of employment and start learning on the job training. A lot of kids benefit from applying what they learn right on the job. We'd like to encourage that they can do that while still in school. We'd also like to realign youth options and youth apprenticeship so kids can take better advantage of those programs that we have in the state. And we'd also like to do a better job of providing information to employers about what the youth employment laws are. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about when you can have a student on, especially in manufacturing facilities, when you can have them in what roles, and we'd like to make sure that employers have the information that they need so they can give those opportunities to the kids in their community. Right. Improve government efficiency and effectiveness. We think maintaining a balanced budget is good for all of us, and for the first time in a long time we do have a balanced budget and potentially more. I worked in the legislature for 8 years and I never was able to work for a finance member that we weren't dealing with a deficit, so this is an exciting time. Encourage consolidation depending on the local community. I mean, I think, for example, we've got, small school districts that are close by. If it makes sense for them to consolidate, we'd encourage that so they can maybe save some resources. Enhance school district management, just making sure that school district administrators and principals are up to date with the latest and greatest opportunities that they can take advantage of, so our kids are getting better opportunities. Licensure issues, we hear a lot about. It's hard to get a teaching license in Wisconsin, and should we have professionals who know the business, maybe giving them a streamlined approach to getting a license so they can go in and teach about the skills that they have and what they gained on the site. We'd like to address the teacher licensing issues. Manage benefit costs, establish consumer-driven healthcare programs for public employees. I know I worked for, I think it was 2005 when I worked for Senator Alberta Darling. When we were trying to get the health savings account bill passed, we thought, well, maybe we should also introduce a bill to allow state employees to take advantage of health savings account if they choose. They don't have to have it, it's just an option, and it would help encourage, consumer-driven healthcare and to try to bring down costs. Enhance economic development programs, include energy efficiency incentives and grants and economic development portfolios, and maximize the use of federal and private energy efficiency money. Again, there's a lot of different silos that get access to these dollars, and it'd be nice if we could better collaborate the use of these dollars. Improve in transportation. I'm sorry, this is, again, bear with me. Investing in infrastructure, improve transportation infrastructure. When we repealed the gas tax in 06, it was 06 when we repealed the gas tax. We've seen kind of a breakdown in roads, and we're going to try to figure out a way where we can better fund the projects that we need to have. There's some big projects, the Marquette Interchange, the development between Madison and Rockford along 90. There's a lot of things that we'd like to do to improve it. It's not just roads, it's rail. I know that rails to trails was a very big thing here in Wisconsin for a while, but there's going to be some trails that might need to go back to rail. We're going to be working on that, which will be controversial. Ensure availability of cost-effective energy. I'm not the energy person, but I do know that Wisconsin is a heavy coal user in the entire country, and we want to make sure that coal is still an option for Wisconsin. Otherwise, it would be really detrimental to the businesses of the state. So we want to make sure that all the energy that we have is cost-effective, and facilitate electronic commerce. This isn't just, this has nothing to do with sales tax online. This is more, making sure that people have opportunities to get access to the internet, especially deployment of broadband in rural areas. We advocate for that. It's better for our businesses that are out there. That's it. So, heavy, sorry, kind of boring, but that's what we have ready for next session. How are we going to get there? Well, we need to have a pro-business legislature. The Assembly GOP currently holds 58 seats. We don't think that the Assembly is likely to change leadership. I mean, the Democrats might make gains in the Assembly, potentially 3 seats, 4 seats, but we still believe that the Assembly GOP will hold. The Senate is now controlled by Democrats, 17-15. The vacancy is the Zipperer seat. Rich Zipperer became Governor Walker's deputy chief of staff, and he's the primary is between Representative Kappenga and Representative Farrow. We have no idea who will be winning that primary. The primary is held on the general election day, and then their general election will be in December. We're not exactly sure, but it's a fairly conservative seat. The challenge is to restore this pro-business majority. So we would like to have 2 seats in the Senate. And the reason being is one of the biggest issues for WMC is the mine. And we all are probably aware that Dale Schultz did not vote for the mine last session. So we would like to get 2 seats just in case we wouldn't have Dale's vote again this session. So that's our goal. Keep pro-business majority in the Assembly, which I think we have a fairly good chance of doing. I haven't heard too many people on either side of the aisle think that the Assembly would come back in Democrat hands. Keep the momentum going to improve the business climate, and we would like to put Wisconsin in the top 10 of the National Business Climate Rankings, which is why we're advocating for the things I just said. The likely Senate targets for that 2 seats. Tom Tiffany, who is a current assemblyman from the Anago, Merrill, Tomahawk area. He's running against, I think, Susan Sommer in the old Jim Holbrin seat. He's running a pretty decent campaign. It's open. He had a 100% voting record with WMC last session. So we do not endorse candidates, but we do support those who have been pro-business. So we would like to see Tom Tiffany win. Senate District 18 is the old Randy Hopper seat. Carol Ressler prior to that. Jess King won in the recall. A lot of people argue that Jess King won that seat not so much because of her politics, but because of Randy Hopper's personal issues. And it is a fairly Republican seat. For the Walker recall election, that seat came out, I think it was almost 62% Republican, if I'm not mistaken. So we think Rick Hudex has a really good chance. And Jess King did not vote for the mine, which we think will hurt her a little bit in that area. The mining jobs benefited all parts of the state, and we think that will affect her. The Hansen-Mako race in the 30th, Senator Hansen's been there a long time. John Mako, his family owns a business up there. He's got fairly good name ID. We're hearing kind of mixed reviews on whether or not that's going to switch. And then the other race would be the old Dan Kapanke seat, Jen Schilling and Mr. Fian. Mr. Fian's wife owns cosmetology schools and hair salons, so he has very good name ID. There's a lot of people in the La Crosse area that know their family and like their family. And anyone who knows that, Senate seat knows that if you do well in the city of La Crosse, chances are you're going to do well in the general election. So if Bill's family and his name ID come through, there's a chance that he could go on and defeat Jen Schilling. and this is just, if you like to get involved, Wisconsin has a PAC, and our WMC has a PAC and a conduit. The Political Action Committee is funding campaigns and personal contributions, and the conduit, we manage your donations for you. You don't need to worry about any of that. That's just a standard on all of our. And then my information. I kind of went through it really fast, so if you have questions.
We do have time for questions.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went. Yeah.
It didn't sound like it was very difficult for a teacher to get a license.
Well, I think it's people who have had real world business experience that would like to get licensed for, you know, whether or not it's an engineer, whether or not they can get licensed and go teach in school. We'd like to give them the opportunity to have like a quick licensure process and not have to take as, you know, the years of training that you might need. Yeah. But I mean, I do have, I have been talking with people at DPI about that, and there seems to be some avenues that we can look at. So we'd like to keep encouraging that.
Nancy, is the information you provided as far as the priorities and the details of those going to be up on the
On our website?
WMC's website once the
After the board takes a look, we will definitely be sharing this information. And there will probably be bill numbers eventually that we can attach to it as well. Yes.
Rebecca, you mentioned that in '06 we repealed the gas tax. And of course, we didn't repeal the gas tax, we simply stopped tying it to inflation.
Right. I'm sorry.
But I was just wondering how the WMC feels about creating another funding mechanism for the transportation fund, being that Wisconsin relies upon the gas tax more than any other state.
Right.
And would you be supportive of tolling or perhaps more general fund appropriations?
I do know that WMC has been looking at a variety of different options to figure out how we can better support the transportation fund. Polling has been part of the conversation. I do not know if that will be an official position of WMC's.
I did read that we are actually running a $900 million a year shortfall in the transportation fund.
Well, and another thing is too, when you're working with the agency, with DOT, we're listening to the projects that they have stated as need. I think WMC would like to have a better idea of what those projects are and to decide whether or not it's truly that much of a shortfall, or if there are projects that may need to take priority, and then how do we fund those appropriately. I think there's a lot more research to be done before we go out there and say we advocate for this type of funding mechanism. Yes?
Kind of a policy along, I was just wondering how does that work when WMC kind of lobbies a state agency directly? You mentioned DPI, for example, there are certain positions in these state departments.
There's usually that.
Who are appointed for that?
Well, we develop relationships with a variety of different people. We work with the executive assistant of the agency or a legislative liaison, and we're working with a legislator who might have authored the bill and something that we support. We would reach out to people like that. I've established personal relationships with people over the years, and sometimes I just call friends of mine as well. But most often it's a legislative liaison or an executive assistant that we talk to. Sometimes there's specific divisions with, air permitting, you bring in all the people from the air division, or if it's, mining, you bring in the people who are working on that. There's DNR has, the different umbrellas. Yeah. There's gotta be more. Anything about national? I didn't touch national, but anything on that? Wow.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a few more announcements before we leave, and thank you again, Rebecca. Will you be here maybe for a few minutes if there's any? All right. Our Halloween Spectacular is next Thursday, October 25th. I think we have 80-some business, 84? Talking to the other Ann down there. 84 businesses participating. Then our member mixer is October 30th at Summit Credit Union. And our November luncheon will be November 15th at the Oaks Golf Course, and will feature economic development in Sun Prairie. And then again, our Community Expo is on Thursday, November 1st. So we are busy, we are active. So I thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us today. Rebecca will be here for a little while yet, and help yourself to more food on the way out because there's still some left. So thanks so much for your time.